And Daniel Radcliffe's had an interesting career, I'd say, since Harry Potter, in that he picks a lot of strange roles, which I kind of like. Mm-hmm. I kind of like that. You know, he's made plenty of money for himself with the Harry Potter movies.
Like he's never gonna have to worry about money. Neither will his kids if he has any. Like he's set. Yeah.
But I remember he did that Horns movie, and I haven't seen it, but that was kind of an interesting role. And what was there's one where he plays a woman, right?
Is there?
I can't remember the name of it. Hang on. The Woman in Black. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't play a woman in that, but that was just the name of the movie.
Right.
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and we work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
And I'm Scott, and today we're talking Swiss Army Man, rated 69% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, 69.
Also known as Multi-Purpose Tool Guy.
Also known as the Fart Movie.
Or the Boner Movie, your choice.
Yeah. I've heard both, but I've heard more farts, honestly.
You know what? The first fart will make you laugh, and the last fart will make you feel.
That's a little pre-trivia. That's actually the reason actor Paul Dano signed on to the film. Is that what the director has told him?
That log line.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't want to go right into it, so let's start with what we've been watching. What you been watching, Scott?
Well, as well documented, I'm a big fan of the half-hour sitcom, particularly The Office, maybe just The Office, but started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I've been really enjoying it, and I'm glad that I'm not just watching The Office again. I
caught the pilot, and I really enjoyed it, but for some reason, I never stuck with it. Like, I caught it when it aired, and I liked it.
I saw clips, maybe, and I was never sold on it, but I just decided to jump in when I found out that it's also created by Michael Schur, who created... or executive produced at least The Office, Parks and Rec, and then also The Good Place, which I just finished season 1 of, and season 2 just started. Yeah. I haven't seen any of it yet, but so I decided to take a chance on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I really like it. It's got a good ensemble cast.
Yeah.
That all have good characters.
From what I saw, it had a good handle in the ensemble, more like Parks and Rec does, where you spend enough time with each character to kind of learn them. Which I like The Office, but I always felt like when it began, it was some of the characters were flat on purpose. But as the show went on, they really picked up on that too. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say by like season 2, The Office figures all that out. And like Angela and Kevin and Oscar, like all your back end characters all have their defined personalities and stuff.
I would almost go as far as to say when Jim left for the other branches, when they really established it, because then you had two sets of characters, you know?
That's true, yeah. Though I would say that the other branches characters ended up being almost entirely flat because there really were only 3 characters there. It was Karen, Jim, and Andy with the boss. I forget his name, but the actor's name is Chip because he's also on Whose Line Is It Anyways?
Yeah. No, but I think that's when they really they had to do more than just like Jim, Pam, and Michael and Dwight. Like they had to kind of flesh the other ones out fully. Yeah. So you're right about the second branch, but it gave them more opportunity. But
it
definitely is. I think an ensemble sitcom works best when you actually have the true ensemble. So.
Yeah, and this one's very funny. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that is. There's been some good guest appearances. I was just watching an episode before we started recording where Andy Samberg's character was undercover leading an auction of Greek antiques, and there was just 2 small cameo appearances from Adam Sandler and former NFL quarterback Joe Theismann. I have no idea why. It was very strange.
Very random.
But it was funny. I think the reason I was kind of iffy on it coming in was because I'm not the biggest Andy Samberg fan. Hot Rod I don't love. And I know that that's a brand of humor that I just don't generally go towards. But since Andy Samberg's not writing or anything like that, it doesn't have that same feel at all. Yeah. And I like him a lot in it. So,
I'm a Samberg fan. So
yeah.
It's on my list of shows to finally actually sit down and watch because I know I like it. I just haven't watched it.
Yeah. Well, give it a go. It's on Hulu. One other thing that I have been watching and I'm getting ready to watch is Nathan For You on Comedy Central is coming back for its 4th and final season, I believe.
Nice. Yeah.
And so they did this. I think it'll be starting right after this episode airs, like on Wednesday, the Wednesday after our episode comes out. But they did a retrospective where they went back to some of the old businesses that he helped out. Yeah. It was like an hour-long special, and it was very funny. That's cool. But that's probably my favorite comedy that's still airing on TV right now. So I'm excited that it's coming back. And I recommend it to anyone. You can watch it for free on Comedy Central. So .com.
Nice.
Yeah. But that's what I've been watching. What about you, Max?
Well, there's a couple things I've been watching this week. The big one I've been watching is a new documentary from Ken Burns called Ken Burns, The Vietnam War. Yeah,
now it's like what you said, it was a 10 episode.
It's either like 5 or 10. It's a long one. He always does long form documentaries where each episode is anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. So it just depends. He's done one about World War II, which is phenomenal. If you ever want to just learn a shit ton about World War II, watch it. He did Civil War. He has a good baseball one.
Baseball's my favorite.
He has one about the Roosevelts that's very interesting. I mean, he's done like tons of subjects, all very Americana, which is cool. And what I really like with this one so far is it's not just American troops talking about the Vietnam War. It's not just historians. Both of those are there. And so are people who lived through it, but it's also Vietnamese people talking about it as well. So they do a good job of kind of reaching every side. So, and you hear good perspectives stuff that you just wouldn't hear otherwise. So, yeah.
Is it still airing, or did it air like a bunch of days in a row? How'd they do it?
It's they aired 5 episodes, and this past week, and they'll air 5 more this next one. So it's a 10 episode. I mean, it's our longest conflict we were ever in. And they just give a lot of good insight. So I highly recommend it. Right now it's airing on PBS. You can stream it on their website, but it's airing live every night. And then usually after a while, these things hit Netflix or Hulu and Amazon and places like that. So
yeah, that's where I watched Ken Burns Baseball is on Netflix.
Yeah.
So.
And he has a very distinct documentary style. They've actually named an effect after him, which is the Ken Burns effect, which is a kind of scrolling zoom on a photo while you narrate over it. So, so that is something he kind of brought to documentaries, and it's been there with him since. So
it's been a game changer. I feel like that's in everything now, you know?
Yeah. And some video editing programs have it like built in as a preset. So
wowza. A true innovator.
Yeah. But what else have you been watching that? Well, I watched something that you watched as well.
Whoa.
We went to the movie theater and we watched a little film some of you might have heard of called Mother.
It's an exclamation point. Yeah.
But it's lowercase too, so you have to be like, Mother. Like you have to start small, Mother, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, Mother. That's right. It's Darren Aronofsky's big project. What was this? Was Noah his last feature-length film?
I think so.
Yeah. So it's been a few years since he's come out with anything, and then he came out with this. You know? Marketed, I think, pretty clearly as a horror film.
Yeah.
Starring his boo, Jennifer Lawrence. Married to a much older man, Javier Bardem, much like in real life. How she's dating a much older man in Darren Aronofsky.
Yep.
But it didn't end up being like that. So I guess we'll drop the here be spoilers here. Here be spoilers.
Okay.
It ends up being just like an allegory for the Bible and Christianity. And
it's also climate change, too, from his words.
Yeah. They're destroying Mother Earth's house. Yeah. So
it's strange. It's a strange movie. I do think the marketing was piss poor on the first go round.
It got, I think when It Comes at Night came out, I talked about how it got like a D or something in Cinema Score, and this got an F.
Yeah.
A straight F.
And I mean, most people I know before the movie came out were like, I want to see that. It looks scary.
Yeah, I was in that boat.
And they made it look like a house invasion movie.
Like Javier Bardem's character wasn't trustworthy or something.
And weird eroticisms. And I don't know if he was behind the first round of trailers there or if the studio was, but I like the idea of making people think that. but the story plays out so differently that I would see why someone's upset when they went and saw it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want a spoilery trailer by any means, but I do want the trailer to be indicative of the product.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, there are horrifying elements in the third act.
Yeah, I mean, baby Jesus' neck breaks after he pees on a crowd of weird Christians.
Yeah,
and then they eat the baby.
And I mean, a lot of that is like tied directly to the language of the Bible, which is strange. But I mean, maybe not the pee part, but you know, eating of his flesh and all that. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of like traceable roots for everything in the movie. I know you and Jody, the three of us saw it, and you guys were a little bit less. I mean, you guys were, you know, we all three were like, that was a dumb movie, but I think I maybe got a bit more enjoyment out of it than you two.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty bad. Even just trying to follow it as a narrative film, I thought it was really poor.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the whole point, I guess. But like, I don't know. I mean, if you are going to remove the allegories and the direct like scenes from the Bible and just watch it as the film it is, it's total nonsense. I don't know that that's necessarily forgivable. I mean, we talk about how a sequel or an adaptation should stand on its own without needing to know the source material and stuff like that. And I would not say this does very well at that.
I think the one exception to the rule is for adaptations and people knowing the source is probably the Bible, because most people know the Bible, whether or not they're religious and whether or not, if they're in America, they know it, whether or not they like can name actual verses. You know the basic story. It's been taught a billion times. You've heard it. So to me, that's the one exception to the rule. Like, you know, if we were in the Middle East and there was something using themes of the Quran, I feel like most people would get it.
Sure.
But I get what you're saying. And
this is trying to send, I mean, an art house film like this is usually trying to evoke an emotional response or convey a particular message.
Yeah.
But the good ones are really going to have any level of subtlety, like even 1% subtlety or anything like that. And this just does not have any, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird movie. I barely consider it a movie.
The reason I got some enjoyment out of it was just, I kind of liked how in your face the allegorical story was, and that there weren't that many subtleties, because it's almost like an exploitation film, like a 70s torture porn film in the form of the Bible. But yeah, I found enjoyment with that it was kind of in your face, not trying to hide anything. I wouldn't say the movie's good, but it's a good viewing is how I would recommend it. I like Aronofsky's work. And even when I don't like it, I like watching it. The exception being The Fountain, and I've talked about that many times. That's not his fault. That was the Blu-ray player's fault, or DVD player. That was a while ago. So, but no, I mean, like, I really enjoyed Noah, and I know a lot of religious folk hated Noah. And I
don't think they're going to come around for Mother.
No, but it's what you get when you have like an atheist Jewish man make an art house religious film. Like, both instances are what they are. In both instances, I completely am like, yeah, that's exactly what he would make. I do think there are some dumb parts in it, obviously, but the middle of the movie kind of dragged for me some.
The first like half maybe is like this Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel story, and then the second half like really goes off the rails with I guess the New Testament is kind of how I saw it. He finished his next work and then she had a baby like in a day. I don't know. I thought Jennifer Lawrence was good, you know?
Yeah, I think overall the acting's really good across the board. It's just the storytelling itself is a little confusing, and I get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the parts that worked for me were definitely, even though it's so on the nose, the Genesis portion all the way through, maybe like the pipes bursting, which is like a flood. Like that.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a little subtle, I guess, you know. Yeah. I don't understand the ending with the oil drums.
That is, from my interpretation, Mother Earth just kind of apocalypsing, basically. Like, that's the environment just fucking shutting down and destroying everything.
But like in that world of the house and everything, why was there like huge, massive drums of oil in their basement?
Realistically, that seems like it would be a heating mechanism. I think some old houses would have like old heat tanks. I forgot what they're called, but in this case, it's Chekhov's gun. It's to explode the house. The movie opens with a burnt woman who's not Jennifer Lawrence shutting her eyes and flames everywhere, and then it cuts immediately to Javier Bardem setting down this crystal, which is the "Let There Be Light" moment. So the movie, we've already hit spoiler areas way on, but the movie ends the same way, basically, with Jennifer Lawrence burning and Javier Bardem getting a new crystal. He plays the poet / the creator / God, and it begins and ends with this like burning and "Let There Be Light" moment, showing that it's all cyclical. He'll do it again. And it's overall, like, I enjoyed it, like I said, but I didn't think it was good. Like, I go on.
I wouldn't recommend anyone see it. I think there's better ways to spend your money.
I, on the other hand, would recommend people see it because I think it's a great conversational piece.
Yeah. Depending on the crowd.
Yeah. I don't think it's good, like, as far as viewing. Like, there's better movies to watch. Hell, go watch Noah. I think it's a better movie. But as far as, like, talking about innovative storytelling within filmmaking and stuff like that, like, I think it's worth a shot, you know?
Sure. I mean, if you're intrigued by it, you should see it. But if you're on the fence, I would not recommend it.
If you're just looking for a horror movie, skip it. Oh,
yeah. Watch it again.
If you're looking for just interesting cinema that's not necessarily good, go see it.
Yeah. I think a better example of an art house film that delivers a message would be Swiss Army Man.
Booyah. That's how we do it here at the Critical Breakdown.
You see what I did there?
Oh, I saw it, man.
Yeah.
I smelled it.
Well, Max, what's the plot smell-nopsis of Swiss Army Man?
A hopeless man, stranded on a deserted island, befriends a dead body, and together they go on a surreal journey to get home.
Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm. It's very surreal.
It's very surreal. It's a very strange movie, and I remember the stories when it was first coming out, maybe at Sundance or one of the film festivals, were about how there was just massive walkouts of critics walking out. The opening scene is just like Paul Dano killing himself and just seeing Harry Potter and Harry Potter farting a lot.
Yeah.
So critics were walking out at that point. And it is, that scene definitely sets a strange stage for a strange film. But I do think this is a very interesting movie.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting.
Why did we pick it?
Well, first off the bat, you vouched for it.
Yeah.
You've seen it before. You enjoyed it. You've actually talked about it on the podcast. I think you've seen it a couple times, haven't you?
Yeah, this is probably my fourth watch. Yeah. It's a movie that, like, I think everybody has movies where they end up being the guy who recommends it to all their friends, and so you end up watching it with your friends. And this has been that movie for me. I know I watched it with my sister and her fiance, and I had some other friends coming to town, and I recommended it to them, and so we watched it. And it's I guess this would be that movie for me.
Yeah, and you've been pushing me to watch it for a while, and I've never really put effort into it, but it wasn't I wasn't like against it. It just was never. I never felt a reason to watch it, basically. So this was a great reason for me to finally watch it. I mean, it even has Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it in a small portion.
Good girl.
And I still.
Hey, she's in the whole movie. She's throughout the whole movie.
That's true. But yeah, so I mean, that wasn't even enough for me to sit down and watch it. So
a couple of the movies that I really love that I always recommend to people you haven't seen, but both of them, this and Spectacular Now, both have Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah.
Usually that's enough for you.
I'm more into watching Spectacular Now after seeing, what was it? The Smashed. That one. Because that was the same filmmaker. And I thought it was pretty good. So sometimes it's just there's so many things to watch. It's hard to go out of your way to see something. But
sure.
But no, and I'm glad I waited because this is an interesting movie to talk about.
Yeah, it's directed by Daniels. Mm-hmm. Which is two guys named Daniel Kwan and Daniel
Scheinert.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't 100% how to pronounce it, but They did a lot of music video work and a couple shorts, but this was definitely their feature-length debut.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I thought was cool was the Daniels did a few music videos for the band Manchester Orchestra, and Manchester Orchestra then does the music in this movie, and the movie is very ingrained with the music and the soundtrack. There are literally parts of the movie where like one of the characters will be singing, and then the soundtrack will just pick up on the song that they're singing and just keep it going. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
it has a good soundtrack. And for those of you who do watch music videos, they did the Turned Down for What music video.
Yeah. And that's an amazing music video.
Yeah. It's unapologetically dumb, which is also how I'll describe this movie. It's
yeah, I wouldn't even go that far, because I don't even think once you finish the movie, I don't think it's necessarily dumb.
I mean,
like your box, your concept is dumb, but they deliver on some pretty real themes, I think.
I would argue that it is dumb, but that, like I said, it's unapologetically dumb, because it's saying if something is dumb, embrace it.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of one of the takeaways.
I would stick with that assessment on my part, but it's only because I think it's true to the spirit of the film. Yeah.
One thing that was cool, we watched after watching the movie, there was like a 15-minute featurette on the making of.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. That was the first movie we'd watched any behind the scenes of the podcast movie that we watched any of the behind the scenes stuff for. And I was glad we did, because it was cool to see the process.
Yeah.
And they talk about that Turned Down for What music video. And in the music video, there's a guy with like a boner bouncing around everywhere. And they were talking about how in that there was just somebody behind them with a broomstick, just like poking the broomstick out to make it look like he had that boner. And a magic boner is part of this movie, a boner compass, if you will. And it was cool to see that instead of just using the broomstick, they developed a like an animatronic boner.
Yeah, they learned their they cut their teeth on the last one. So.
Yeah, they've really honed their craft.
Yeah, their boner skills.
Yeah.
Hold on. What other movies could we have watched?
I would ask you, because you got the list.
Don't know if you remember any off the top of your head. We could have watched Les Mis.
Yeah.
Too
many close-ups.
I was gonna say, yeah. You don't like that many close-ups. No wonder you hated Mother. Like 60% of it's a Jennifer Lawrence close-up. So. And
she's pretty, but I want to see the whole house.
You want to see Javier's weird ass face?
Yeah. Give me some more Michelle Pfeiffer.
That's a Scott moment right there. Stoker. Which,
I know you're a big fan. You're very fond of Stoker.
I liked it a lot. It's very Hitchcock-esque. So if you like Hitchcock, I suggest Stoker.
There you go.
Darjeeling Limited.
This one I haven't seen. It's Wes Anderson. It's one of his earlier works too, right?
It's one of his mid-works, I would say, right now.
It's hard to tell with Wes Anderson, because most of his stuff has the same cast and visual style and everything.
This is after the
Royal Tenenbaums.
It's after that, but it's after the sea one.
The sea one.
The ocean one, the water one. The Jacques Cousteau one. Life Aquatic. Thank you.
I thought you meant one that began with the letter C.
No.
I was like, what?
But this is after that and before he did the Boy Scout one. I'm terrible with
Moonrise
titles.
Kingdom.
Thank you. So yeah, this is kind of like when he started catching his wind again, I would argue. But
well, I know you're very negative on the Life Aquatic.
I would say that one's divisive. I would say like it's 50-50 with a lot of people.
It got his worst reviews, but a lot of the people I know that are really big Wes Anderson fans really like the Life Aquatic.
Yeah. I mean, I consider myself a huge Wes Anderson fan, and I just hate Life Aquatic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were a big Wes Anderson fan. Maybe it's because you forget the titles of the movies.
Probably. But no, I really enjoy Wes Anderson, cool. And I loved. I'm gonna forget it. I love the hotel one.
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make, because I forget titles all the time too. But no, it's interesting with Wes Anderson. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. Like I've seen and loved Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
And I really liked Fantastic Mr. Fox. But I am not honestly sure if I've seen any of his other stuff.
like Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and Royal Tenenbaums are three of my favorite films, especially in that kind of style, more of like, dramatic comedies and stuff like that. So I think Royal Tenenbaums is a near perfect movie experience for me.
I feel like I've seen maybe 2/5 of the Royal Tenenbaums on Comedy Central, so I wouldn't say that counts per se.
Yeah. No, that's a required watch, I would say. You need to get to that one. We can maybe watch it on the show, but you'll have to deal with me crying a lot. So.
Well, I already do usually have to deal with that. Sorry.
I'm not upset.
Wipe the tears away and let's keep going.
Okay, a movie that makes you cry often, Disturbia.
Doesn't make me cry often, but it is nice to see young Shia.
Cry with joy is what I meant.
Yeah. Also, David Morse, an OTG All-Star, I'd say. Mm-hmm. Star of Contact. He's the villain in this. My dad, remember, I don't think he even watched it, but he hated it just because it's like a pseudo remake of Rear Window, but it's not even that similar to Rear Window. Mm. Like in concept alone, it's similar, but Shia leaves his house a lot more than Jimmy Stewart did.
Yeah.
It's good, though. We watched this together. I forget what the occasion was, but we were all just hanging out and we just put Disturbia on.
Yeah. And you were like, ooh, Disturbia, let's watch this.
Yeah. Sometimes it's all it takes. But we did watch it on commercial TV, too.
Yeah.
So that's a positive review.
I enjoyed what I saw. I think we missed the first 15 minutes or so, but it was still an enjoyable watch. Yeah,
it's a pretty harmless thriller for marketed at teenagers, I'd say.
Yeah.
All things considered, too, I feel like if they made Disturbia in 2017, it would be a lot more sexual. This movie was not all that sexual. There's a romance, but it's not like a raunchy movie by any means. I feel like that's where all these movies aimed at teenagers go now.
What year was this one?
2005, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Like everything after The Hangover is all just boners.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong at all.
And I guess we're talking about a boner movie, so.
Yeah.
We also had Synecdoche, New York.
Yeah, this is a very strange movie.
I've never seen it.
I believe it's Charlie Kaufman's first directed movie. Mm. He also wrote it. It's almost impossible to describe. It's kind of another movie about the creative process, and I feel like he makes a few like that. It's a very weird movie. I feel like you need at least 2 or 3 watches to really understand it, if you even could. But it's got Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he's excellent in it. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. It's very visually creative. Just a real oddball movie. If you like the people involved, though, I'm sure you'd enjoy it.
And we also have Freedom Riders, another movie I haven't seen.
Yeah, Hilary Swank. I believe Patrick Dempsey. What's Patrick Dempsey up to these days?
Isn't that McDreamy?
Yeah, but is that still a thing?
I don't know. I think everyone's died on that show by now, like the characters.
Oh, spoilers.
I honestly don't know. Maybe he's going to be in
Maid of Honor.
Enchanted 2 when they make that, is my guess.
Did they greenlight that?
Disenchanted is what they call it.
Ooh.
That's a title right there.
Freedom Riders is
he's in Bridget Jones's Baby.
Oh, yes. He stars alongside a lot of actresses that I feel like are divisive on whether they're hot or not. Hilary Swank, Renee Zellweger.
He starred beside Amy Adams, and that's not divisive at all.
No question.
So, another divisive film would be the SpongeBob movie.
Yeah, very divisive. A lot of true fans of the show didn't like the direction it went. No, I'm not.
I actually don't know. I've seen one episode of the show, and I've never seen the movie.
I'm a little younger than you, so I've seen quite a bit of the show. And my sister and I saw this movie on Thanksgiving Day.
Hell yeah.
And it actually is pretty funny.
I'm at comfort with that. I'm cool with that, I
believe it ends with a rock opera jam. So
that's legit.
And I believe it's called the Goofy Goober Jam. So
that weirds me out a little bit, but
you got to see it maybe.
Yeah. I guess you just had to be there.
Wow.
I guess that's all of our thoughts on SpongeBob.
What do you want more? You know?
No, that was
really
good.
It's Patrick's show. Continue.
So next up we had Treasure Planet.
Yeah, I've never seen this one, but this is one of those movies in the post-golden age of Disney animation, I would say.
Yeah.
But a lot of people really love Treasure Planet.
I really love Treasure Planet. I thought it was great.
There you go. Look at that. Set you up for it.
It's, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's Treasure Island in space.
I've heard enough.
Yeah. You're like,
I'm more of a Titan AE fan.
They're so close, like in
their time frame,
release,
for sure.
Yeah, release time frame and all that.
But Titan AE, I don't even think was Disney, was it?
No, that's the Don Bluth side of things.
I don't even know what that means.
That's just another animator. It's like Anastasia, is what I'm saying.
Well, I thought Anastasia was Disney.
It's not.
Okay. Treasure Planet kind of follows with like Atlantis and Lilo and Stitch and Emperor's New Groove in that like early 2000s, very late 90s Disney kick. You know, after The Lion King and stuff. When I feel like
it's post Disney Renaissance for sure.
Yeah.
But I freaking love this movie, and I liked not Anastasia. I liked Atlantis and Lilo and Stitch a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I would because I kind of had moved on past like Disney Renaissance in my head. But
yeah, but I feel like no one really grows out of, you know, liking Disney movies. Like I watched Inside Out 2 months ago or something, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe Pixar's different, but maybe not.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the post-Renaissance was because some Disney movies felt like they pulled away from the musical aspect.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, Treasure Planet, I imagine, did, right?
I don't remember if it had music or not. I mean, it had music, but I don't remember if it was a musical or not. It's been a while. I probably saw it when it came out.
Yeah.
But no, it was definitely enjoyable. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in it, I want to say.
Huh.
But it's, I mean, obviously it's animated, so it's all voice work. No, it's good. I say check it out. Titan AE was a little bit earlier, 2000 versus like 2002 or something. But it's good filmmaking. It's good cartoons.
It's certainly
good sci-fi cartoons.
It's certainly no Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron.
That was one of our other options. Yeah. That's a horse movie starring Matt Damon.
So there you go.
We could tie that back to Titan AE, which we just mentioned, and then we're done.
There we go. Then we're done. Thanks, folks.
That's our show. You can catch us now. There's a couple others we didn't watch.
What else we got?
Cut through them real quick. Muppet Christmas Carol.
I want to linger. The Muppet Christmas Carol is one of my like 3 favorite Christmas movies. It's incredible.
It's good, man.
It's good engagement.
I don't have many thoughts on Muppet Christmas Carol. It's good, but it has no like spot in my heart like it does for some people. There's other Christmas movies I like better, and there's other Muppet movies I like better. So it's just
it's
kind of
top
there.
5. It's top 5 of all time Michael Caine movie.
There you go. That's we can prove that later on. But our last option here is Die Hard 2.
Yeah,
Harder.
We wouldn't watch Die Hard 2 because it's a sequel, obviously, but it bears mentioning.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty. I think it's shameful that Die Hard 2 is rated so much higher than Die Hard with a Vengeance. That's my whole thought.
I haven't seen Die Hard 2 since I was a kid, and I don't remember a lot of it. So
all I remember is it's not Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yeah, I've seen the first one, Die Hard, and then I've seen With a Vengeance like thousands of times. So it's hard to really think about this one again because I saw it when I was a kid and I haven't revisited it, and I should. But you know how it goes.
It's okay, man.
You know how it goes.
Okay.
You know how it goes.
It's okay. Don't even worry about it.
Well, we're not here to linger on the Die Hard series. We're here to linger on.
We had that episode already.
Yeah, we're here to linger on some farts between friends, man.
Yeah. As we mentioned, the cast here, pretty sparse, but it's Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe's show.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead has, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a cameo, but a very minor role.
I would say it's a major role, but a minor acting role.
A minor acting role.
Because she's like a plot device also.
Yeah, I would say Paul Dano plays Mary Elizabeth Winstead for longer than Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Possibly true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a strange movie. I'll say this: the first 30 to 40 minutes, I was like, "This is some old bullshit right here." It was funny, but it wasn't like grabbing me in any single way. I was just like, "This is funny," and it's well shot. Like, I really liked how it looked.
Yeah, I would say visually, it's very visually, and then the editing both. That's probably its biggest like successes. But like you said, after 30 or 40 minutes, the movie kind of takes a turn. There's one sequence where, in order to power Daniel Radcliffe's dead guy magic boner compass, Paul Dano recreates this scene of where he met a girl on the bus, and it's like his embodiment of love almost.
Yeah.
And so the editing is like rapid fire here, and the visuals are really good in this montage. And they build this insane set. Like I was saying to Max, that I think it would have been really fun to be part of the prop and production design team, because the sets are insane, legitimately insane in this movie. So in this big scene, kind of halfway through the movie, they build this set that's a bus, and they have the outdoor sites going by from a porno magazine that they found. And like, it's all this insane stuff. Paul Dano is dressed up as Mary Elizabeth Winstead. They have this picture on his cell phone of her, like it's his background. They come later in the movie to kind of reveal that he's sort of implying that like he and her are in love, when really he's just taking creep shots of her, and it's someone he sees on the bus, and he's like a very anxious and depressed guy who does not talk to her.
It's even like one level drill down further from that, because he makes Manny, the dead body, believe that this might be his woman, that like that's his reason, because it's his cell phone. You as the audience know there's something more to that. You don't know exactly what, because you're let in on it, which I thought was a good choice to kind of like make you wonder what he's playing at there. But
yeah, and I mean the movie is not by any means sympathetic towards Hank, that's Paul Dano's character. They sort of lead you in that direction at the start. He talks about some like crappy stuff with his dad, and I believe his mom died or just left the picture. And they talk about that and how he misses her and stuff. But by the end, I mean, Hank is kind of a huge creep.
Oh, yeah.
And they even kind of pull out the rug. They make you think that it's going to be a very storybook ending and that she's going to forgive him. There's another crazy sequence after they get back to society where they're at. And I don't remember, was her name Jessie? Or was that just a name? That I think that's what they named the Playboy model.
Oh, yeah. That was Jessie. Her name was Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah. They end up at Sarah's house after stumbling through the woods. And so the cops are there with Manny's body and everything. And they're taking care of Hank. He's about to be on the news. And he ends up running away with the body because, you know, a lot of the movie's about the power of friendship and all this stuff. And they run by all these crazy sets that Hank had designed himself. And everybody's kind of freaked out. And there's this one scene where Sarah walks up to him and she's like, "Did you make all that for me?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Fuck you." Like, it's like an amazing turn.
Yeah.
Makes you think it's going to be storybook, like, oh, well, he's so sweet. And really, it's like, no, he's a total creep.
Even then, what I liked, the portion you were just describing where him and Manny arrive behind this girl's house, and there's a little girl there. It's her daughter. It's Sarah's daughter. And they make you at first think no one's going to see the dead body. Like, it's just him. And then she's like, "What are you doing with that dead body?" The little kid is. And then you're thinking, well, maybe it's just a dead body, and all the magical stuff is in Hank's head. Yeah. And then Manny throws up water. He uses his boner powers and he farts, and she's like screaming. The little kid starts screaming. Yeah. And then so you realize, oh yeah, this is like a real thing. And so then the police are there, all that like you just described, and they have Manny zipped up. And
well, Hank says that he's Manny, and I never fully got why.
I think what happened is they assumed I think he was. But I don't know if they ever showed him saying it. They were just like, that guy's a bridge jumper. You know, Manny. And I think if he said it, it was because he was like worried about the phone aspect. Yeah. But they said, you know, we called the father on the phone. And he should be here. And the dad like didn't want to see the dead body because he was obviously distraught. And I like that basically they kind of made it seem for a moment where you might be thinking, wait, what's going on? And they were going to like unzip the bag and it was Hank the whole time somehow. And like he was his spirit and his body and he separated them in his mind somehow. So that's a very indie movie thing that I would have not liked. And I'm glad they didn't do that. And then there was something else I was thinking about too that they could have easily done where, you know, maybe he like takes off and lives his life now as Manny, even though that's, you know, not who he was. So there's a bunch of stuff where they could have just easily like gone this easy, believable route where you're like, oh yeah, the guy's crazy. That's all. But instead they took it and made it where the movie ends with Manny taking off into the sea, farting and smiling back at his friend right after his friend Hank just like let out the biggest fart he's ever done. And they have this really emotional scene earlier where they're fighting a bear and arguing with each other. And Manny's like, I know you go fart in secret. Why don't you fart in front of me?
that was a very funny scene. Yeah,
it's funny, but it's also like touching when it comes back to that moment where Hank starts farting on purpose to show that he like loves his friend.
Well, and part of it was like Manny is a corpse and he's farting. And one of the first things Hank does is like he finds a cork or something and he puts it in Manny's butt. So he's not farting anymore. And he's talking to Manny, like teaching him lessons. And he's like, well, no, you can't fart because then people will think you're weird. It's like, oh, no, you can't say that because then people will think you're weird. And you can tell it's like thoughts he's had in his head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I guess the end of the second act or start of the third act is this bear fight. This is a really weird movie to describe, by the way.
Everything we're saying sounds like we're making shit up, but if you've seen it, you know we're not.
And that's when they're arguing, and Hank's like, look, you said my farts aren't, you say I'm not weird, but why do you go away and fart in private? You don't fart in front of me. And then they show a little montage of Hank just like ducked behind bushes and like trees and like looking back at the camera, like all guilty and farting. And it's the funniest thing in the movie.
Oh yeah, totally.
But kind of like you said, where it would have, there's a lot of ways that a movie like this would try and ground itself again in realism, like where Manny was in his head the whole time or was just a corpse and he was really doing all this stuff. But this movie doesn't even try to do that. And that's part of what makes it kind of endearing. Yeah. The last scene is literally him motoring out into the ocean, a dead body motoring out into the ocean powered by farts.
Yeah, just like fart swimming.
Yeah. There's no better way to end it, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna stick to that and you're gonna run with that the whole way, that's how you end this movie. You know, there's no going soft on it. You gotta commit to it, and they do, which I respected. I liked. I didn't think I would like this movie as much as I did like it. And I think the reason it worked for me was because they don't make amends for the fact that Hank's a huge fucking creep. Yeah, he just is. And if anything, he's finally comfortable with the fact that he's a terrible person. Not even just, it's more that he's like a terrible social person. I wouldn't say he's like a terrible person, like a serial killer or anything, but he's, you know, he's not a normal, well-adjusted person, and that's for sure. But he obviously needs help. I did like that his dad seemed like really proud of him. At
the very end.
Which was probably like the best emotional beat you could tie back to with that. Because his dad's just like laughing and cheering as the dead body farts its way into the ocean, and Hank's just like relieved that he's not crazy. And it's the stupidest tie back to like an issue he had with his father earlier, but it's just really funny. And I really do like that Sarah isn't forgiving of him or interested, but that her daughter is just like laughing as the dead body farts its way out, smiling. It's well done and realistic for, you know, the woman to still be completely creeped out by the creepy guy. No matter what. Had
hundreds of pictures of her on his phone and stuff. Like, he's a total creep. And I mean, it touches on a lot of mental illness, I think. I mean, it talks about like anxiety and stuff like that and fitting in. And I mean, there's lessons in here about like friendship and being yourself and embracing your creativity. I mean, Hank's a very creative guy with all the sets and stuff he was building and all these lessons he was showing Manny. He'd make these little figures and drawings and act out movies and stuff. I think my favorite quote of the movie is, if you don't know Jurassic Park, you don't know anything. Because like every time Hank has these successes, like when Manny starts spewing water, he starts like singing the Jurassic Park theme. Yeah. And it's... I don't know. It's such a hard movie to explain in this form, especially without the visual, which it's a very visually dazzling movie. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Oh, yeah.
And musically, like you mentioned earlier, the soundtrack's great. It was all a cappella. It's so strange compared to any other movie, really. But it suits this movie really well. It's like very earnest, the music, and it sets the stage really well.
Totally.
Daniel Radcliffe has gone on record saying this is his favorite film that he's been in, which pretty amazing considering he was Harry Potter. But he was also doing ridiculous, crazy things throughout. I mean, they obviously used models for the scenes that they had to, but it was really, what was the scene we were watching where they had to keep doing it over? They were on the bus and Hank's standing behind him and he spits in his hands and like taps Daniel Radcliffe's forehead to be like, and your head gets sweaty because you're nervous and all this stuff. And they had to do it like a dozen times. And the movie, the featurette we're watching just shows it over and over again. And it's so ridiculous, but it just seems like so much fun.
And what's funny is the main reason that Radcliffe kept laughing is because the director and the director of photography, they both kept laughing themselves.
Yeah.
So like the three of them were just giving each other the giggles so much that one of them had to leave the set, like the behind the scenes aspect of it. He walked away so that they could finally finish the scene.
And what's amazing too is Paul Dano is honestly the most ridiculous part about this scene. He keeps like hawking loogies into his hands, rubbing them together and tapping Daniel Radcliffe's forehead. And he is stoic.
Yeah, he never breaks.
Totally
he doesn't
fun.
break at all. So it just shows his dedication to that moment.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I already like Paul Dano, but I like him a little bit more even now seeing this.
He brings like every time he's in a movie, and I feel like he's not the lead in a role all that often.
Yeah.
But like his part in There Will Be Blood is amazing. And he was in Prisoners, and he was really great in that.
Yeah, he's really good in Prisoners.
He's an actor I'd love to see get, like, obviously not for Swiss Army Man because it's a weird movie, but find a role where he gets like award consideration because he does put out a performance like that. And he's like borderline character actor because he has a goofy look about him, and he doesn't have the charisma of your leading man. But
I think as he ages, there's a bigger shot for him because he is kind of awkward looking. He's not like bad looking by any means, but he's weird and he gets these weird roles, you know.
He doesn't have that classic leading man like handsomeness, if you will.
I think as he ages, that the chance of that goes up basically. But like, I mean, people first probably saw him in Little Miss Sunshine, and he was really good in that. And you know, he's just like a distraught teenager in that. So
he's picked awesome roles. Like There Will Be Blood, his role there. I mean, he's probably the second biggest character in that movie, beyond maybe Daniel Day-Lewis and his son would be the two biggest, but he's in the whole movie and he's just excellent. I was reading that they were going to originally, because it's been a long time since I've seen it, so what I'm saying might have a little factual errors, but the movie takes place over a very long period of time. It spans a long time, and they were originally going to at the end scene where Paul Dano comes back to Daniel Day-Lewis's like mansion or whatever, they were going to have a different actor playing the priest because so much time had passed, but they were so impressed by Paul Dano, they just had Paul Dano still doing it. And I mean, that's a testament because that's great filmmakers and actor that he's alongside, and he holds his own so well in it.
True.
And Daniel Radcliffe's had an interesting career, I'd say, since Harry Potter, in that he picks a lot of strange roles, which I kind of like. I kind of like that, you know, he's made plenty of money for himself with the Harry Potter movies.
Like he's never gonna have to worry about money. Neither will his kids if he has any. Like he's set. Yeah.
But I remember he did that Horns movie, and I haven't seen it, but that was kind of an interesting role. And what was there's one where he plays a woman, right?
Is there?
I can't remember the name of it. Hang on. The Woman in Black. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't play a woman in that, but that was just the name of the movie.
Right. That's what I was saying, I think.
Yeah.
So anyways.
He was in The Woman in Black, which is more like a pseudo horror. It's like a horror, but it's not. I don't know. I think it was a horror. I saw it, but I wasn't that enthralled with it. So I like to see that he's doing more creative stuff.
And he was also last year, he was in Imperium, where he plays an FBI agent going undercover in a group of neo-Nazis. And I didn't see it, but it looked really interesting. And I believe I actually own it on Amazon, and I've been meaning to go around to watching it. But He's an actor who now he could have easily tried to become just like your kind of standard A-list actor, but it seems like he embraces roles. I mean, you watch a Swiss Army Man and it's like clearly he wants to be part of like a really creative and interesting film instead of just a cash grab. And you can tell actors that are like that. I mean, Paul Dano's another one. He's not in like, there's not going to be a Paul Dano Marvel movie. I hope there is now. Yeah. But that's just not the kind of movie a Paul Dano takes on. And Daniel Radcliffe's kind of the same way now.
Maybe he'll do a DC movie.
Yeah.
He could be Plastic Man.
Booster Gold. But those two have really good chemistry, which is kind of funny considering one of them is playing a dead body the whole time. But the thing that I like so much about the movie is you can tell everybody had fun with it, Dano and Radcliffe included. And watching that featurette, I mean, they're doing things in the making of Swiss Army Man that no other movie is probably going to be doing. Like they showed that scene in the featurette of them recreating the opening scene of the movie where Paul Dano's riding Daniel Radcliffe as a jet ski, and how they're recreating everything and how they have these boosters and they make this perfect model of Daniel Radcliffe's butt that they can blast air out of for farts and stuff. Those are things that you're never going to do again. Yeah. And it's a production like this that brings out those strange things that you can have fun with. And the movie embraces all of that. And it's so earnest with what it is that it's a success in my book.
And like, I mean, those are things you probably can never do again. Like nobody's going to be able to do another fart drama, as they called it. Actually,
what was it? They had a name for it. Was it fart drama?
It was fart drama or fart romance, but I don't think it was romance. It was something with the word fart.
It's going to bug me now. It rhymed, I thought. Like a drum-com.
I don't remember.
Anyways.
What was that?
Yeah. At the box office, Swiss Army Men did not have a big presence. This is definitely the most indie film we've watched. I mean, the closest thing would be like Getaway, maybe.
Getaway,
which didn't have wide releases. Accidental Love. Yeah. Forgot about that one.
There might have been a couple more, but... Yeah.
But this one didn't get a wide release. At most, it was in 636 theaters. Its opening weekend, it was only in 3 theaters and it made $105,000. But its total run domestically was $4.2 million, and it did not get a foreign release. It was also very quick into VOD and everything. Yeah, after its Sundance performance, where again it got really bad buzz after Sundance. Yeah. I'm guessing, like you said, the first 40 minutes you were iffy on it. I'm guessing that the critics at Sundance had better things to do than they probably went to watch, The Birth of a Nation. I
don't think I would get up even at Sundance to go see something else.
No, I mean,
that's probably that one, like there's some movies that we've turned off, but not a lot. So it'd have to be really, really bad.
Yeah, like the other day I was trying to watch Neighbors 2 and I turned it off after about 10 minutes knowing it wasn't for me. But I don't think Neighbors 2 had a big turn, like halfway through where it really got good.
Be strange if it did.
Yeah. And in watching movies for this podcast, I've watched worse movies than anything that would ever be at a Sundance. So I'd probably stay the whole time. I'm interested though, Max. Last summer was kind of a crappy summer. What movie would you have seen when Swiss Army Man opened? Would you have seen Finding Dory?
No.
The Legend of Tarzan? Maybe. The Purge election year? The BFG? Independence Day Resurgence? The Shallows? Free State of Jones? Now You See Me Too? Or X-Men Apocalypse, which you'd probably already seen?
I'd definitely seen X-Men Apocalypse. I would list that one as the most likely choice if we go back in time.
Yeah.
But I actually really want to see The Shallows, and that's the Blake Lively shark one, right?
Yeah, and it got really good reviews.
I want to see it still, and I want to see it then. I just never had the time to, so I'd probably put that right at the top. And then you know what? I'd put Legend of Tarzan third.
I feel like you kind of need to at a point.
Wow.
I mean, you were...
No. We'll do next week's our Ben-Hur episode. We'll do that as a special.
Shut up. How dare you?
You watch Ben-Hur. I watch Legend of Tarzan. We discuss.
And the pod ends.
Yeah.
I think The Shallows is streaming now, by the way. I think it's on Amazon Prime. Don't quote me on that, but
I won't. I just won't.
Okay, thank you. You got any more thoughts on Swiss Army Man? Swiss Army Man's also on Amazon Prime.
Nice. Yeah, it is. I like that they made a fake version of Manny, but Daniel Radcliffe insisted on being in every shot that he could. He wanted to be there as much as possible. I like a lot of the technical techniques behind the film. The directors do very traditional work, but they also know when to use computer effects.
There was a lot of practical effects, which is weird for this movie. But
it's the best mix up too. They know how to do it, like I said, because they've worked on music videos and they've done shoestring budgets, and they've now have a bigger budget. But basically, a lot of big movies have huge budgets, so they aim to just CG everything instead of taking the time to, and they call them plates, where they have these shots that are like three things that are going to be combined. So you have a bear attacking, you have Paul Dano's character Hank like reaching out trying to survive the bear attack, and then you have Manny on fire flipping towards the bear.
Yeah.
If this movie had a $100 million budget, they would have CG'd all of that together.
And they wouldn't have even thought twice about it.
Exactly.
They would have just been that's a CG scene.
And they had three separate plates of each thing, and they managed to combine it, and it looks flawless. I mean, you can barely tell there wasn't anything. So,
I mean, there was legitimately a bear.
Yeah.
It wasn't Radcliffe, but they had a stunt double covered in that anti-flame goo or whatever. Yeah. This was all in the featurette too, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And they literally had him flipping and exploding on fire, and it was 100% real. It was awesome.
And they just piece it together piecemeal, and it works super well. It works so much better for movies when they take the time to think about what you should do. Because like a tree getting karate chopped by a dead body, you would CG that, but a tree breaking looks more realistic when a tree just breaks. When something chops a tree, it looks different than a CG tree exploding or something. So there's just these little moments, and I appreciate that the filmmakers had the time and effort put into that, because I think that makes a huge difference for the visual aesthetics of a film. And it shows more more thought process put into it. So if you can do CG with a perfect flawless approach and you know when to use it. Yeah. The big guys know how to use it mostly, so they're fine. A lot of middle of the road movies don't know how to use it the right way, and a lot of that's studio interference. So I've read stories before where horror movies want to use a blend of the two, but the studio's just CG it. It's cheaper. We're not going to let you do it. And
it stands out when a movie has bad CG.
Yeah.
And limited but real practical effect is always going to be better than bad CG.
Oh yeah. I showed you a clip. I'll mention it next episode because I didn't get to talk. I skipped talking about it, but there's a movie I watched this past weekend where they use practical effects. It's from 1986. It has a soda can dancing, and it looked pretty fucking awesome. So
yeah, it did look amazing. And
so we'll touch that next time if I remember. But I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was better than it deserved to be in a sense, but it was also as good as it should have been. It's like the Bilbo Baggins quote, I like half of you as much as you deserve and all that. That's my thoughts on this film. Kinda. It's like I normally, if you told me it's like a fart drama or whatever, I'd be like, fuck you. But at the same time, I like I said, it doesn't ever apologize for the fact that it's a movie about a farting corpse and his best friend.
Yeah, I mean, when you read the summary on paper, or when someone just tries to describe it to you kind of in this podcast, you're not getting the full effect of what this movie is.
Yeah.
And even a trailer is not going to do it, because there's build up, and we talked about Mother at the start of the movie and how it's delivering a message and it kind of lacks subtlety and it's very on the nose. This movie has subtlety and it's not as on the nose because there's a corpse bonering around. There's things that aren't part of your core message that build up to a total package though, and it makes it really good.
The vehicle it uses to get its message across is so outlandish that it works very, very well.
For sure. One other thing, in the limited cast there at the end, there's a cameraman and a coroner who were played by the two members of Manchester Orchestra who did the whole soundtrack a cappella. So it's Andy Hull and Shane Carruth. I believe that's Shane Carruth.
Yeah, it's a good soundtrack.
Oh no, actually Shane Carruth is not in Manchester Orchestra, but he is a director. I recognize him his work Primer and Upstream Color.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he played the coroner.
I've always been told I should see Primer, but I never have.
I've been told Primer is one of the most confusing but realistic time travel movies ever. That's what I've heard it described as.
Same.
But yeah, so he has a small role. Let me ask you this, Max. The Daniels directing and writing team, I was reading that their next film is a sci-fi film that they had greenlit. I don't think there's any more details out there other than that. But are you interested in these guys' work after this and after their music video work and stuff? Do you think that they'll be able to make bigger movies?
Yeah, I think they have the chops to make big movies. I just think they're always going to have like kind of an offbeat feel to them, seeing their previous work and stuff. But I mean, it depends on if they want to do indie movies or go mainstream. For mainstream, I think they just need to turn up the subtleties a bit more. To stay indie and off the beaten path would also be a great career choice for them if they make good shit. And I think for that, just, you know, this movie says embrace your freak flag, you know?
There you go.
And I don't think it would be a discredit to them to go mainstream because they obviously have a lot of skill and talent. And, you know, I'm always for artsy filmmakers going mainstream if they manage to retain their artsiness.
And they get the right property and stuff to work on. And
maybe they'll make like the Fart Bible adaptation, you know?
Yeah. Shit. I want to see that now, the Fart Bible.
Yeah. So, no, I'm interested to see what they do.
I'll be following
They can't have
career.
any worse of a career than like Neil Blomkamp. So
that's true. If that's the bar, I think they can get there. Max, where can the good people find us?
Well, you can find us riding each other through the ocean as we fart. Or you could just go to thecriticalbreakdown.com, read our blogs, subscribe to the podcast if you're not for some reason. Tons of info up there.
Tons of it.
Yeah. You can always find me creep-shotting Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Not true.
I don't know, actually.
But you can find me staring at pictures of her, or you can just go to Twitter and find me at Max Rivera Film.
You can find me in the woods in a recreation of a bus powered by a pornographic magazine and a bag of cheese puffs, singing my own rendition of Cotton Eye Joe. Or you can find me at breakdown_Scott. Check us out on Instagram. Also on Twitter, but I will not interact with you there because I don't have the password.
He just doesn't want to reset.
Yeah, at this point, it's been long enough that I forgot my password that there's just no point in going back.
I agree.
That's pretty much what I'm saying by not resetting my password.
Just cut it loose.
Yeah, it's gone. Follow us on iTunes or whatever your podcatcher of choice is, maybe Podcast Addict or perhaps Overcast or even Stitcher Radio, where we're there. You know, leave us a rating and a review wherever you may find that convenient to do. Our art is done by Josh Rivera.
Our music's done by Jason Brown.
And Walter is the podcast fart machine.
I do love Walter in spite of all of his farts.
And that's the lesson. And we're the podcast boys.
We're the podcast boys.
Next week on The Critical Breakdown,
we're going to discover what's best in life when we watch Conan the Barbarian, rated 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
There can only be one.
That's Highlander.
Oh.